Nobody told you the game was already running. You walked into the room thinking you were making free choices, thinking your opinions were your own, thinking the people around you were operating in good faith. But some of them weren't. Some of them had already mapped you. Your fears, your blind spots, your need for approval. And they were using all of it, quietly, methodically, before you even sat down. This isn't paranoia. This is what skilled manipulation actually looks like. Not the dramatic villain twisting your arm, not the obvious liar you can spot from across the room. The dangerous kind is invisible. And the most frightening part? The better they are at it, the more you defend them. The most effective cage is the one the prisoner believes he built for himself. The first thing you need to understand: manipulation doesn't feel like manipulation. Most people imagine control as something forceful. Someone pushing, someone demanding, someone making you do something against your will. That's not how it works. Real manipulation feels like warmth, like understanding, like someone finally getting you in a way nobody else ever has. That feeling, that relief, is the entry point. Every skilled manipulator knows that resistance lives in discomfort. So they eliminate discomfort first. They make you feel seen, heard, validated. They reflect you back to yourself like a mirror. And the moment you relax into that reflection, the architecture begins. You're not being pushed. You're being pulled. There's a specific pattern here that most people miss entirely. It starts with a period of what psychologists call overinvestment. The manipulator gives you disproportionate attention, affection, or praise early on. They call it more than they should. They show up. They remember details. They make you feel chosen. And it works because the human brain is wired to reciprocate. When someone gives, you feel the invisible pressure to give back. Loyalty, trust, access. The manipulator isn't asking for these things outright. They're engineering the conditions where you feel compelled to offer them freely. You think you're connecting. They're building leverage. The second truth: they feed on the version of you that needs approval. Here is an uncomfortable thing to sit with. Most manipulation doesn't exploit your stupidity. It exploits your longing. Your longing to be understood, to belong, to matter to someone, to be seen as competent, lovable, worthy. The manipulator finds that longing, and they speak directly to it. They'll tell you what you've always wanted to hear about yourself. Not in an obvious, flattering way, in a calibrated way, a way that feels almost accidental. Like they just noticed something true about you that nobody else bothered to. And you'll think, this person really sees me. That thought binds you to them. Because once you believe someone sees the real you, you start filtering your reality through their eyes. Their approval starts to feel like proof of your worth. Their disapproval starts to feel like a threat. And the moment that dynamic takes hold, they have a dial. A dial they can turn up or down. When they want something from you, the approval flows. When you resist or question them, it disappears. And you, without consciously realizing it, start adjusting your behavior to keep the warmth on. This is not weakness. This is biology. The same mechanism that keeps children attached to unpredictable parents. The same mechanism that makes people stay in situations that are slowly corroding them. Intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable alternation between reward and withdrawal. is one of the most psychologically binding forces known to human behavior. You're not stupid for falling into it, but you need to recognize it. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life whose moods control your behavior? Someone whose approval you reorganize yourself to maintain? Someone you find yourself explaining yourself to constantly? Not because they asked, but because the silence feels dangerous? That's not connection, that's a leash. The third law: confusion is a weapon, clarity is power. Confusion is the enemy of power. And the most effective manipulators understand this with surgical precision. They keep you slightly off balance, not dramatically, not in a way that triggers your alarm system, just enough. Enough that you're never fully certain of what's real, what's fair, what you actually deserve. They rewrite history, not all at once, in small, deniable corrections. That's not what I said. You always misremember things. You're being oversensitive. And because the changes are incremental, because each one alone seems trivial, your brain doesn't register the pattern. It just registers an uncomfortable feeling that you can't fully articulate. That feeling is called doubt, their specific goal. Once you doubt your own perception of events, you outsource your reality to them. You start checking what you're allowed to feel. You start wondering if your instincts are the problem. And the moment you distrust yourself more than you distrust them, the game is over. This is why the most controlled people often believe they are the most free. They're not suppressed. They're just completely convinced that their cage is the right place to be. Stop. Think about someone in your life right now who makes you feel like you're always slightly wrong, always slightly too much or not enough. Someone around whom you're always recalibrating. Now ask yourself, when did that start? The fourth truth: they use your values against you. This is where it becomes sophisticated. The unsophisticated manipulator threatens you. The sophisticated one makes you feel that compliance is a reflection of your own character, your kindness, your loyalty, your integrity. They know what you value. Maybe you pride yourself on being understanding, on not being the kind of person who gives up on people, on being someone who can hold space for others' pain without judgment. And they use that. They position their demands inside the frame of your values. So saying no doesn't feel like protecting yourself. It feels like betraying who you are. I thought you cared about this. I guess I was wrong about you. Everyone else has abandoned me. I thought you were different. Watch how that works. The manipulation isn't in the request itself. The manipulation is in the framing that links your refusal to a character failure, the framing that makes compassion and compliance feel like the same thing. They're not the same thing. And once you understand that, you stop responding to the frame. The person who says, "I thought you cared" every time you assert a boundary is not expressing hurt. They are issuing a correction. They're telling you to get back in line, and the line is always in their direction. Genuine relationships don't require you to abandon yourself to maintain them. Connection built on the systematic erosion of your instincts isn't connection. It's occupation. The fifth law: they engineer your isolation power over a person multiplies when that person has no external point of reference. This is why controlling dynamics, whether in relationships, groups, or organizations, almost always involve a quiet, incremental process of narrowing your world. It rarely happens as a declaration. It happens as preference. I feel like your energy changes when you're around certain people. I just want more time with you. Those friends don't understand what we have. Small statements, emotional in tone, reasonable sounding on the surface, but accumulated over months. What they produce is a person whose social landscape has quietly shrunk to include almost exclusively the manipulator and their chosen orbit. Now think about what this does. When your world narrows to one person, that person becomes your entire frame of reference. There's no one else to say, actually, that's not normal. No one who knew you before this relationship started. No perspective that hasn't been filtered through the dynamic they created. You can't see the cage, because the cage is all you can see. The moment you recognize this pattern, do not wait. Reach outward, not dramatically, just reach. Reconnect with someone outside the orbit, someone who knew you before, someone with no stake in the story you've been told about yourself. Because isolation is not intimacy. Intimacy does not require you to disappear. The sixth truth: the exit is always designed to cost you. Here is the final mechanism, and it is the coldest. Manipulators don't hold you with chains. They hold you with consequences. Every attempt to leave, physically, emotionally, psychologically, is met with something that triggers your deepest fears or your deepest guilt. Sometimes it's a threat, barely disguised. Sometimes it's a collapse, a sudden vulnerability designed to pull your caregiving instinct back online. Sometimes it's the sudden reappearance of the warmth from the beginning, the version of them that made you believe in the first place. And you hesitate. That hesitation is not weakness. That hesitation is them reading you. Accurately, precisely. They know which lever to pull because they spent the entire relationship mapping which levers exist. Every fear you confided, every wound you revealed, every moment you showed them where the soft places were, all of it is inventory now. This is why leaving these dynamics is never as simple as just deciding to leave. The manipulation doesn't end at the door. It continues through guilt, through grief, through the identity crisis that comes when you realize that the version of yourself you became inside this dynamic is not actually who you are. But here is what matters. That version was constructed, which means it is not permanent. Who you were before the erosion began, that is still there. Quieter now, maybe. Less certain, but intact. What comes after recognition? Understanding these mechanisms does something that cannot be undone. Once you see the structure, the overinvestment, the approval dial, the deliberate confusion, the weaponized values, the narrowing world, the calculated exit cost, you cannot unsee it. The dynamic doesn't disappear immediately. These things rarely do. But your relationship to it changes. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not confused. They are manipulating. You stop softening your perception because it makes someone else more comfortable. You stop treating your discomfort as the problem to solve. Discomfort is information. The people who benefit from your confusion will always insist that your perception is the error, that your instincts are overactive, that the pattern you've noticed is paranoia dressed up as insight. Trust the pattern. The mind that is not manipulated thinks clearly. It doesn't circle the same questions endlessly. It doesn't feel drained by conversations that supposedly ended hours ago. It doesn't lie awake recalculating whether what happened was fair. If you are doing those things, something in your environment is pulling on your cognition. Find it, name it, stop feeding it. Because here is what remains once you stop allowing others to narrate your reality. You get your mind back, quiet, steady, yours again. And from that place, that still, unmanipulated place, you start to see everything differently. Not just the person who had access to your blind spots, but the structures, the social games, the subtle competitions for your attention and compliance that were always running beneath every interaction you thought was simple. The world did not change. Your vision did. And once that shift happens, there's a category of person, smooth, certain, calibrated, who will look at you and sense it. Sense that the usual entry points are closed, that the approval dial connects to nothing, that the confusion tactic lands without purchase. They'll move on to easier terrain, and you'll let them. But manipulation is only one layer of how power actually moves between people. The deeper question, the one most people never ask, is why certain individuals are never targeted at all. Not because they're louder, not because they're harder, but because of something in how they carry themselves. Something in what they never reveal, never react to, never need. That's a different kind of architecture altogether, and it changes everything.